What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Fletcher, and welcome back to another episode of The Jake Fletcher Show. In this episode today, we're discussing the dangers of hesitation, the benefits and importance of striking while the iron is hot in order to reach your goals, make the most out of life, and to attain success, whatever that success means and looks like to you. So first, let's talk about how and why people hesitate. Look around, and you'll see hesitation everywhere. People can't decide what to order in a restaurant after looking at the same menu for 20 minutes. People can't decide who goes first at a four-way stop. People staring at the same grocery store shelf for 10 minutes trying to figure out what type of tortillas to buy. I've been there. There's a lot of different tortillas out there, right? But the problem is this also comes into play and happens in more important and consequential situations than just figuring out which type of tortillas to buy. For example, people might want to get a new job or to start their own business, but they're apparently waiting on a written letter of permission from God and the universe. Look at people who are in a toxic relationship, for example, and hesitate to leave or do anything about it. People will wait nearly all year for January 1st to make life changes. And then January 1st comes, they make those changes, and then a month, 2, maybe 3 months max later, and they're right back to where they were, right? Now, the examples go on, and you might see yourself in some of those examples. I know I do in the tortilla one. There's so many tortillas, what the hell? But now, I want to point out, I know that some of them are far more complicated, like the relationship thing, the toxic relationship. It's more complicated than just a simple talking point, but invariably, hesitation does come into play and has a detrimental effect on your life, the speed at which you make progress, and the quality of progress that you ultimately make, all right? So why do we hesitate? Well, it really generally all boils down to fear, which is one of the great motivators of mankind for better or for worse. And when it comes to hesitation, as I see it, there are 6 main types of fear that leave us susceptible to hesitation. We're going to go over those here, all right? So I'm going to list them off, and then we're going to talk about all of them individually. So fear of poverty is the biggest, all right? Fear of making the wrong decision, fear of criticism, fear of failure, fear of success, and fear that whatever we do won't be perfect, otherwise known as being a perfectionist, all right? So these are all examples of destructive thinking, negative thinking. It's poison for your mind, and you are the one who's introducing this poison. So why do we do this when we could be feeding our mind positive thoughts? After all, we're the ones who choose what to feed each of our individual minds, right? Self-talk can either be a stumbling block that we continually trip over and over again in our lives, or it can be a building block, all right? So how you talk to yourself in regards to these fears is going to ultimately determine how much each of these fears affects you. So as we're talking about this, take a bit of mental stock, do a little self-quizzing of yourself to see how much this stuff is affecting you or not affecting you, which of these fears or, individual, maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3 or all of them, which ones are affecting you the most, which ones are affecting you the least, so you know which ones you need to work on more, right? And I want to point out that you'll never reach your true potential until you've conquered all of these fears. So, any one of them can hold you back, and it's important to understand what they are, what the symptoms are that you can recognize, and ultimately we'll talk about how to get over these fears and maximize your time, energy, and potential, all right? Now, I highly recommend reading the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, as he goes into some more details on some of these fears in that book, but this is actually a mix of information from that timeless book as well as my own interpretations and experiences. So not all of the fears are from that book, so there won't be too much overlap if you have read that before. So the biggest fear of them all, the fear of poverty, right? We've probably all experienced this at some point. Personally, this is my greatest fear still because I've been poor before. I know the long-term trauma that's associated with that. I've been there cashing in my coins at the Coinstar every week just to get a little grocery money. I've lived day to day without enough and always chronically stressed about finances, so I understand this fear all too well. And it's the most discouraging of all the fears because it preys on your imagination. It preys on your ability to reason, your self-reliance, your initiative, and it causes uncertainty of purpose and leaves you feeling indecisive, unenthusiastic, and predisposed to a lack of self-discipline. So it's a mess, right? It's a whole mess. And it also leads to some of the other fears like the fear of criticism and fear of failure that we'll get into. So the symptoms of fear of failure, according to Napoleon Hill, are indifference or lack of ambition, indecision or letting others do the thinking for you, worry, which can be expressed in a lot of different ways, like blaming others for everything, spending beyond your means, or neglecting your appearance, to name a few. Overcaution, or the habit of always focusing on the negatives of every situation and self-fulfilling your own failure. I know we all know people like that. And last but not least, procrastination, or the habit of putting off till tomorrow something that you can do right now. And the way to conquer this fear starts with the same actions as the way to conquer all of these fears. Simply put, if you're experiencing any of those symptoms, ask yourself, are you afraid of poverty? Poverty is mindset, as is being wealthy. Wealthy people don't get that way with a poverty mindset, the same way that you don't go broke with a wealthy mindset. So realize that it all starts in your mind. There is no compromise between riches and poverty. You have to unequivocally demand riches to determine what form they'll come in and how much will be required to satisfy you. Then from there, you'll need to ruthlessly follow your own roadmap on how to attain those riches and keep yourself honest, on track, and on a regular basis, okay? So only you can really have those personal self-guided meetings with yourself to make sure that you're taking the right steps towards your goals. And that's really up to you, you know? So that's the fear of poverty in a nutshell. And now let's move on to the fear of criticism, all right? Fear of criticism is another big one. We're constantly playing the comparison game, right? Especially because of social media, seeing influencers. You know, we've all seen like the 18-year-old kid they're just traveling the world and making like $1 million a month somehow, right? And, you know, we see everyone flexing on the gram. And even though we know most of it isn't real, it makes us feel inadequate, if not subconsciously, then consciously, potentially. And thus we feel that others may internalize this perception of us that we've internalized so much that it's now become externalized. All right. So think about that. We've thought about it so much. It's so internalized in us that it becomes externalized, and we're afraid that other people might pick up on that. Right. So we want the newest fashions, the newest car, the newest designer, this and that, all because of the fear of criticism. I mean, how could you survive if someone noticed that you're not wearing the newest Gucci, right? And although that might sound silly, it's exactly how we've been taught from our culture to express this fear in one form or another. And of course, this basic emotion comes into play not just when wearing clothes or driving cars, but when we want to make major changes as well. I mean, what if your parents or your spouse or your friends don't approve of the career choice that you want to make, or the career change you want to make, or the change that you want to make in your business or your personal life, right? I mean, what if people laugh at the grand plans that you have for life or how you want to change the world? What if someone says to you, hey, what you want to do isn't possible, right? To this point, I'm sure that you realize that the world is full of enough criticism, right? And that's one reason why I always try to be nice to people no matter what. If someone's being an a-hole, I just assume that they're having a bad day, and I continue to be nice and be myself. And, you know, it's also why when I used to teach kids, if I had a point of critique to help them get better, because I was a teacher, I would try to find a few things that they did well, mention those first, really congratulate them, build them up, and that would then soften the blow of the critique. So that's a little tip you can take into your life as well. It also made that critique better received and therefore more effective. So fear of criticism also has a similar effect of fear of poverty in that it creates a lack of initiative. It destroys imagination. It takes away your self-reliance, among many, many other things. And the symptoms are self-consciousness, generally expressed through nervousness, timidity, awkwardness when talking to people and meeting others, lack of poise or lack of voice control, poor posture, and poor memory, lack of personality or lacking in firmness of decision, charm, and ability to express opinions definitely, in addition to constantly sidestepping issues rather than meeting them firmly, and Also, simply just agreeing with others without careful examination of what they're actually saying or what their opinions are. Some other symptoms are an inferiority complex or the habit of expressing self-approval as a means to covering up self-consciousness. Right? We all know those people who just constantly inflate their own ego. They're probably the most self-conscious in the room, right? Also, lack of initiative, lack of ambition, or lack of confidence, mental and physical laziness, and lack of assertion, just to name a few. So ask yourself, do you have a fear of criticism? If so, why? Why are you so invested in the opinions of others? Are their opinions going to pay your bills, invest in your future, build your business? Probably not. So once you realize this, you should be able to file the desire to care about others' criticism in a circular filing bin, aka the trash can, right? So take that desire to care, boom, right in the trash. As a rule, I personally never ever listen to anyone's advice on anything unless they are uniquely qualified to speak on the subject. For example, am I going to listen to a parking attendant's advice about how to build my real estate business? Am I going to listen to a salary worker's opinion on entrepreneurialism? Am I going to listen to advice on digital marketing from someone who's never done it? Or get advice from a gold bug on Bitcoin, right? You get the point. And not that there's anything wrong with any of those positions or any of those roles or careers, but the point is, if someone hasn't achieved a high level of success at what they're critiquing you on, then their opinion truly isn't worth the air used to express it, okay? So moving on. The fear of making the wrong decision is simply based on a concern that whatever decision we make will lead us to a less favorable outcome than a different decision. So we deliberate and delay making a decision for so long that we ultimately never make one and spend our whole time in limbo, a sort of purgatory of indecision, analysis paralysis. Some people spend their whole lives here in this purgatory. The symptoms are doing unlimited research or not taking action because you need more information. So you keep reading and watching videos, etc., as a way to explain why you haven't done anything yet, right? I just need to read a few more books. I just need to watch a few more tutorials, right? Other symptoms are constantly second-guessing ourselves or a lack of decisiveness, being overly humble or allowing ourselves to be weak when the situation calls for strength because we're too scared to throw our hat in the ring and we disguise it by feigning humility, right? Or faking humility. Other than owning real estate, there's one thing that all successful people have in common, okay? Remember this. They make decisions quickly and they don't second guess themselves. Do they always make the right decisions? Hell no. But it's a muscle that you build like anything else, and the more you use it, the better it gets, and the higher the likelihood that those decisions will be better and better, to the point where you're on CEO level decision making, right? That's where we all want to be. Successful people don't have time to sit around and mull over decisions, some little decision when they have 1,000 other decisions to make that day. Every extra minute that you spend trying to make a decision to take action on is something, is a minute that you could have spent solving another problem or taking steps to further your progress in something, right? So just think about that. Keep it in mind. Next, the fear of failure relates closely to the fear of poverty, as we generally relate success to financial wealth, and it also relates closely to the fear of criticism, as we generally expect some form of criticism, whether from others or ourselves, if we fail at something. So we imagine the worst case scenario is going to happen if we fail, and this fear paralyzes us into inaction, basically. And guess what happens after too much inaction? You guessed it, failure. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense, okay? And the symptoms of the fear of failure are self-consciousness, overcaution, nervousness, lack of initiative, and constant worrying, just to name a few. If you feel like you might be suffering from this fear, I want you to ask yourself some basic questions, all right? What's the alternative if I choose to not take action? Meaning, if you do nothing and let the fear of failure control you, what will happen? How will you feel about not trying or attaining your goal? What will happen if you do try and you do fail? Will you die? Probably not, right? Will you learn lessons? Will it be a humbling experience? Will it give you an opportunity to do better next time with a better understanding of how to succeed? Probably. Will you regret it if you never try? Also, probably yes, right? So if it's not going to kill you and you'll become better with no regrets, even if you do fail, then what are you waiting for, right? So here's the next one. Fear of success. And it's a slightly odd one out of the list because you think, well, why would I be afraid of success? Well, it's generally linked to our programming and self-talk around and dealing with the topic of money. You've probably heard things like money's the root of all evil and rich people are greedy, or people who have so much money, they got it through ill-gotten means or taking advantage of people, right? We've all heard that kind of stuff. So if you become successful financially, that would mean all of those things apply to you. I call BS, nonsense. I categorically reject all of those types of claims, and you should too if you're trying to rid yourself of this fear. And I can tell you for sure, all of those things that are repeated ad nauseum are repeated in the brokest circles by the brokest people, okay? So why would you let broke people determine how you should think? Doesn't really make sense to me, right? Symptoms of the fear of success are overspending or keeping up with the Joneses and spending more than you make so that you never acquire large amounts, spending money on things you don't need so that you don't accrue too much money, and in one way or another, giving all of your money away to family members or friends or acquaintances who always seem to have their hands out and are more than happy to take your money from you. And coincidentally, they're also usually the same ones that said rich people are evil. Funny how that works. Now, don't get me wrong, giving money to charity is a very worthwhile endeavor, and I personally give very generously, and I have done so every year that I've been able to do so. However, when the action of giving comes at the detriment of your goals and financial well-being, then there's something deeper going on, okay? I highly recommend reading a book. It's called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker if you feel like you suffer from this fear. It's a very deep subject. There's a lot more that can be said about it. We don't realize the type of societal programming that we have embedded in us around this topic of money. I've personally read that book like 3 or 4 times. I've given as many copies to friends. It's a great book. So the last fear is the fear of imperfection, or more commonly expressed as being a perfectionist. The one thing to, it's one thing to strive to do your best, but it's another thing to let perfect be the enemy of good. Good is good enough to get it done and on to the next step. So that doesn't mean that you don't strive for greatness. It means that don't let your true potential be squandered by wasting your time on an unattainable level of perfection that ultimately won't make a difference even if you get close to it. So I'll give you an example. What's a better album? The one that's released to the public and is full of good songs, or the one that no one ever hears because the creator is so afraid of what they perceive are imperfections that they never release it? I can tell you personally, I've suffered from this fear many times, and I'm still trying to figure out, honestly, exactly how to conquer it for good. But what I've found so far is that it's helpful to start by taking small steps. If you're afraid of imperfections in the pursuit of some greater goal, then break down that goal into smaller bite-sized chunks and start chipping away at the first one, all right? And then the second one, and then the third, and so on. Eventually, you'll have made a whole lot of progress and you'll have increased confidence, okay? And at that point, you can then go back and maybe make a few tweaks here and there, and then ultimately take the final step of making it real, okay? So practice with small things. If you're afraid to make videos for your social media, for your small business or something like that, take a video of yourself every day for a month on your phone. Okay, so you take out your phone and just make a 1-minute video every day to practice, all right? And don't post it. Right? And then on the 31st day, do the same thing except post the video. And I guarantee you that you'll feel more confident about the quality and so-called perfection of what you create than you would have if you posted that first video. And it'll also likely be objectively better too as an added benefit because you've been practicing for a month, right? So take that concept and apply it to whatever you're afraid might be imperfect, okay? Start small, chip away at the little chunks, right? Practice a bit, and then ultimately set a goal, set a time or a date, whatever it is, where you're like, this is the date that we're going to do this, right? We're going to take it live. We're going to make it real. We're going to release it, whatever it is, okay? So here are the steps to help you overcome these fears that lead to hesitation and are setting you back in life. So you want to work on your confidence, realize that you're the only one who can truly give yourself permission. And once you start doing something correctly, build on that momentum so you don't stagnate. All right. So let's talk about it. Working on your confidence. It's a hard thing to do, right? Some concrete steps that you can take are, here's an idea. You can join a local Toastmasters club in your area to practice public speaking, right? It's like a weekly event. People get together and kind of fun little exercises to practice public speaking. Even if you're good at public speaking, this exercise will help you to build confidence and instill subconsciously that you are capable of doing stuff that scares you, right? Because most people are a little bit freaked out by public speaking. So another thing is to watch out how you may have labeled yourself. Have you already decided that you're not confident? Because if so, you're right. Remind yourself of all the things that you've done in life that you previously doubted yourself on or that were really tough, okay, and that you ultimately conquered. And think back to how you felt in that moment when you finally did that thing. Close your eyes, right, and just recall that feeling, everything about it, all the sensory connections to it, everything. And now internalize that feeling. And anytime that you're feeling a lack of confidence, close your eyes, stand up straight, take a deep breath, and call upon that memory to bring you an extra boost of confidence. This is called anchoring, if anybody wants to look into it more. Now, of course, there's no magic pill. Ultimately, you'll still have to be the one that takes the leap. But the good news is that confidence is a muscle that you can build like anything else. And the more you flex it, the more confident you'll be, okay? Next, realize that you're the only one who can truly give yourself permission. No one else wakes up behind your eyes every morning. So who's the real boss of your life? You or the people whose criticism has you frozen? Or the various fears I've outlined in this video? Who's in charge? You have to make the decision, and until you decide that you're the one in charge, your life is going to suffer, okay? But what if your parents or your spouse or your grandma or your grandpa or your cousin's ex's uncle's best friend don't approve? Well, ask yourself one question. Are they the one who has to live inside your mind for the rest of your life? Are they the ones that have to deal with all the internal struggles that you'll face if you continue to not take action? Are they the ones who ultimately know better how to live your life than you? Right? Now, as an aside, if you're under 18 and you still live with your parents, this doesn't really apply the same to you. You need to either figure out how to get your own money and pay your own bills and all of that stuff, which would make you the boss of your life, or you have to wait to get out of on your own, whether that's after college or high school or whatever it is. But if you're over 18 or you pay all of your own way, then you have to realize that you no longer need anyone's permission. And here we go. Let's do this. If you still are having trouble accepting and giving yourself permission, then here you go. I, Jake Fletcher, hereby dub you and declare that you have my full permission to take action, to take control of your life, and take that big step towards your goals. All right. So there you go. It's all started right now. The time is now. You have my full permission. All right. So go into the world and conquer. All right. After this video. So now let's talk about momentum. Just like making decisions quickly is a muscle that can be cultivated, so too is maintaining momentum. Once you realize you're on the right path, take stock of what's working and do more of that. Take notice of what's not working, correct it, and then do less of that or none of that, right? It's really that simple. Do more of what works and your momentum should continue increasing. Do less of what doesn't serve your ultimate purpose, and that will work to get rid of the drags on your momentum. So the more momentum you have, the more you can instinctively trust yourself and the moves that you're making. The more you can trust yourself, the bigger the steps that you can take. The bigger the steps that you can take, the quicker and more effectively you can reach your goals, all right? Now, here are a few final tips. make sure that you're setting realistic goals that can actually be achieved in real life, okay? Your goal shouldn't be something like, oh, I want to fly, unaided by a plane or, a jetpack or something, right? I mean, you're not a bird, so I don't know what to tell you, So that's just a silly example, but you get the point. You want to make sure that your goals are something that can actually be done, all right? It can be a lofty goal. It can be something that nobody's ever done before, but still needs to be something technically possible, okay? Define those goals in writing and review that list regularly to check with yourself and make sure that you're still in alignment with those goals and on track to achieve them, all right? Now, next, measure your progress, okay? Quantitatively, meaning using actual numbers and actual data. Because remember, whatever you focus on grows, okay? And last but definitely not least, make sure to celebrate your wins. So there will always be another hurdle, but if you don't stop to enjoy life, you will never stop and enjoy life. So smell the roses, my friends, because life is beautiful. And I hope this video helped someone out. This is all stuff that we all have to deal with as human beings, and hope that somebody got some value out of it out there. But until the next time, hope you guys stay well and take care of yourselves and sell smart, buy bold. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.